Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We had a technical issue, and that's why we are starting a little late. But I believe we should be having the speakers joining us soon, and we'll start the session in few seconds. But before other speakers join, let me say that we are on the fifth uh, Growth Sutra session today, and basis the feedback which we have received from various participants in our past sessions, uh, we have uh, we have actually um, put together a session on qualifying leads, as that's the topic which goes well with the entrepreneurs, with the sales and marketing team, sales and marketing leaders, and there's a lot of deliberation which we had before we put together this session, and we have come out with an approach which could be of interest for all of you, and that's where we are going to have our dear friend and senior advisor Dennis Roman, who is going to be talking about qualifying leads from the perspective of Wall Street concepts. So I'm just waiting for him to join, as there was an issue, a technical issue which we face on our end. Um, Sorry for the delay, guys. Uh, we would be joined by Dennis soon. Till the time, we have Riaz who has joined, and I also want to mention this time that we have introduced um, a new element as part of our webinar, as the uh, practitioner report, and that's where we have invited Riaz as our guest speaker, who would be talking about qualification of leads from his perspective. Riaz has been in the industry for more than 25 years. He's currently a senior sales director. We would be coming to his session at a later stage. Till the time, we are going to start with our own set of slides. But while we wait for Dennis to join, let me begin with some of the slides here. um, and you know when we look at a lead, and this is actually goes to my discussion with Ritika. Ritika is my colleague here with Growth Sutra, and she's been involved in terms of designing, managing the logistics of these events at the same time, working on the content. But um, uh, she has actually, when we were having a deliberation, and I was talking about what is a lead, and we were looking at, okay, there are three elements which I shared with her. One is a query. There's a query that should talk about a potential interest in the solution by the contact, by the target contact. And then the target contact should also have a role and a designation which can meet the ideal customer profile. um, so when we were having further deliberation, we have agreed to the fact that yes, all these elements are important to make a lead, to define a lead. But then we had more deliberations, more discussions, and then Ritika brought in some more points, which are in terms of, we have to also look at budgeting and buying authority, pain points and needs, decision making process and timeline, current vendor relationships, investment and resources, past purchase history, partner and technology landscape. Uh, she doesn't stop here. She actually shared some more data, which is with reference to, it has to fit with the ideal customer profile, which I already covered. But then it should also have demographic data, firmographic data, engagement data in terms of, what is the past engagement with the lead had with the brand. Then, there's also some intent data which has been added from the perspective of social media, behavior of the target contact. Then, whether it's a referral or word of mouth data, and then whether the our solution meets the need. So of course we had a lot of discussion around that, and then we said, okay, fine, now let's leave it for Dennis to take further in terms of, how to qualify a lead which could be of interest for a lot of the stakeholders. And I'm glad now that Dennis has joined the session. Hi, Dennis.
Yeah, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I was challenged here uh, at Romans Numbers Central here in South Florida. So forgive me, I had some difficulty getting to the event today. And thanks for leading us off today, Vish. We've had a lot of people sign up for this webinar, which we're delighted at. And we think we've probably hit a very important subject based on the amount of people who wanted to register for this. So I'm looking forward,
Yeah.
actually, Vish, to our next one, which we'll be having in May on financial nuts and bolts to continue this subject around. Anyway, so that's just saying hi to everybody. Back to you, Vish.
Okay. Just to add to your point, Dennis, it's not going to be just one more webinar. We are going to have a series of webinar on qualifying leads, and we would be not only covering topics which are with reference to the qualification, but we would be also talking about segmentation. We would be talking about funnel design. We would be also talking about the roadmap that should be adopted by the leaders in order to qualify the right leads that can promise them opportunities. Okay, so while we were also having some conversation here in terms of at the lead qualification, there was also some an example which we had when we approach um, uh, a client recently, and we were a prospective client, and when we were having a discussion with him, what is the concerns which he has been facing from a lead perspective. They are um, and he's the founder of that organization, and he mentioned that there's a marketing team which has been kind of saying that salespeople aren't pursuing leads. Then there's a sales team that's saying, marketing leads which have been shared by marketing team are not sales ready. So there's not work. It's not worthy to pursue these leads. And he, being a CEO, he's saying, there's a sales marketing disconnect. There's a misalignment which is causing lead leakage. So we are losing our potential opportunities which have been there in the market. And how can we fix it? So that's something which may resonate with a lot of participants who are there on this webinar today, and I believe they can see the similar scenario in their organizations on the in the functions which they have been working on. So what is important now is how the qualification of leads can be carried out. That's a question which normally gets missed out, considering the fact that lead is seen as an elephant in the room, and people, either the sales team or marketing, they do not have enough time to go through a lead qualification, or they feel that lead qualification may take a lot of efforts and resources, while they may have another leads to pursue. But I think there are ways, there are approaches which have been adopted by various experts, and one of the approach is certainly going to be covered by Dennis today. So without taking much of time, I'd like to introduce Dennis here, and who could take us through his insights. In fact, the before we start, we also have a question for all of you. So sorry, Dennis, you'll have to wait for a few more seconds. I'm going to read out this question. I think this is an interesting question which is there for the participants. To what extent is the lead qualification a defined process at your firm? So there are four options which have been there. A, being used and perfected for years. B, not novel but not well worn as yet either. C, calling it as a process would insult the work process. And D, at the beginning, and we are bursting for same. We are hunting for same. So uh, I would request participants to share their options, A, B, or C, or D, in the chat window, so that we can understand what are the defined processes which they have been which are there in their forms. Okay. So, while we wait for the responses, Janice, what is your take? You have been in the industry for that long, and what would be your insight in terms of this question?
I have found working for technology companies practically for half my whole career, it's one that it's ill defined, and the bigger the company is, and whereas the company may have more machinery and software to deal with it, the process is so ill defined, which is part of problem A, and it doesn't go through a synthesis where it gets better and better and better and better, and we learn from our mistakes. And so I'd probably really identify with part B, which is, yeah, we're doing it, but it's not get. I guess the punchline, Vish, is if it was working, there wouldn't be that much interest in this webinar, because there may be something going on at the institution, but it's not producing the results that everybody wants. It's a friction point. As opposed to being oil in the machinery, it tends to be more friction, and that would be my take on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We are actually we have got a response from Pankaj. He's also opted for option B. Okay, we have another response from Ramakrishnan. He's also opting for B. So I think that's in line with what you shared, Dennis. Okay, so now we are going to move to the to your session, Dennis. And before while I have already introduced Dennis, but Dennis has been in the industry for very long, more than 35 years now. And he has been a marketing leader for various organizations. He was, with TCS Financial Solutions, with TCS as well, global marketing head for platform business. He has also been marketing head for Oracle and HP in his past lives. So, Dennis, over to you.
Thank you, Vish. And I'm going to move into my New York speed in speaking, and hopefully we can plow through this. Okay, this slide, all I want to say on this slide is if you start with the premise that you and your brand don't matter at all to your prospect, you at least stand a chance of being humble enough to really being able to qualify your lead. Translation, there's just way too many vendors chasing way too few opportunities. That's not news to anybody on here, but man, you got to do everything in your arsenal every single day in order to distinguish yourself. Okay, keep going. If you're seeking average returns, do what you've been doing. If you want to find a better way, you're going to have to not follow the leader. Keep going. Okay, this is my Rorschach test. So, what I want people to tell me in the chat is who do they think the customer is here or the prospect? Who's the customer of these two figures?
So, you can opt for A or B. There are two options which
That's
have
right.
been
Pick
provided
A
here.
or B. Pick A or B. So, who's the prospect? Who's the customer in this side? Okay, so in the interest of time, I'll keep plowing ahead, but I'm expecting that an awful lot of people are probably identifying B as the customer. Why? Because the customer's got the door closed and he's pushing to keep the door closed, and the vendors are breaking their back trying to push the door open, right? Hopefully, everybody on this slide relates to this. So, this is not really a mutually supportive contest in the market. It is a contest. It's a contest. And why is the contest this way? Because the buyers are their PowerPoint worn out. They hear the same arguments from a disparate number of vendors, and the vendors are all sincere and they mean what they say, but there's just too much supply chasing too few demand. And the way through is to use again as many legitimate arguments in order to break through this barrier. Okay, next slide really also says it all. Lead qualification is firmly entrenched in no man's land. Is it marketing's job to produce the qualifications? Is it the salespeople to take the leads and produce the qualification? It's often firmly entrenched in nowhere. That's been my experience. The marketing team is desperate to want to do the qualifications. They don't have the budget. They don't have the right arguments to use to qualify because the process is so ill-defined, et cetera. The sales team doesn't want marketing to give them 1,000 leads. They want them to give them 20 leads that have been qualified. And so neither side is happy. And this goes to your realignment slide, Vish. And management's pulling their hair out. All right, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So let's go to that next question.
Okay, so that's it's a question to the participants. To what extent is the lead qualification process owned by a team? So there are four options which have been provided. Marketing is the owner but resists due to low budgets and lack of details. That's option one. Option two is sales is the owner but is lacking correctly message content, collateral, and case studies. C, process is owned but the assignment of duties is fuzzy at best. D, it's owned, it's executed, but we came to see how we can do better. So please share your response in the chat window. You can opt for either A, B, C, or D, or you can have multiple options as well. So Dennis, while we are waiting for the response, in my opinion, this actually differs from company to company. Especially in for different sectors, different industries, there's a different lead qualification process which have been there. In some instances, it's either the sales who take the lead. In some instances, the marketing who take the lead. Okay, so we have started getting response, and most of the responses are D. It's owned, it's executed, but we came to see how we can do better.
Good. I'm actually,
Very good.
I'm optimistic to hear that answer. That's terrific. I'll just give one anecdote. I had one of my marketing leads who reported to me at TCS say to me, this is a very frustrating subject. I said, well, why? As if I didn't already know what the answer might be. But she gave me a novel answer. She goes, the sales team told me to go after this company. And I did. And I came back with 5 leads from that company. And then they didn't do anything. And when I called them up and they go, what's the story? They go, oh, yeah, we changed our mind. We don't really want to go after that company. And she's going, well, you may not want to, but I want credit for having produced 5 leads. Okay. So it could be any variation on a theme. Okay. What's the next slide? Let's go to the experts. So one way you could do this is to go out and find experts to help you do qualification. Okay, great. That's a great, experts are wonderful people. Here's an expert that I went and grabbed who is an expert, who actually knows what they're talking about. And here's what that expert said. There are 4 pillars needed to pre-qualify a lead. Okay, fine. And then went on to give 5 pillars. I mean, is that a rookie mistake? Okay, so the experts sometimes, anyhow, you get the idea. So I've seen 4 pillars. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Fish.
it's actually a marketer who has worked out these pillars, because I see in the from the routine messages, I see, can you provide something unique? So I think that's where it's marketing always. Uh, so I'm actually from a marketer, so I'm boosting myself. But yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
So let me go to that unique one. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. First off, if you think your stuff is unique, let me ask you this. If you got fired tomorrow, wouldn't your first stop be to go to your direct competitor to get a job? And if your answer is yes, I'm not sure what you got is unique. I mean, I'm being a little facetious here, but you get the drift. So it isn't the uniqueness that worries me so much about what we have to offer. It's how the uniqueness is tied to what the company wants to do. And there is a chasm that we're going to come to in a few minutes on this thing. So all I'm saying at the bottom here is all of these frameworks that are available, any framework is better than no framework. And if you are using a framework, as long as you're perfecting it, rinse and repeat and rinse, fine, that's great. But my final point here is, if you don't know precisely how your target account makes money, no framework's going to help you. You must get to the heart of how that company is operating. All right, next slide.
Okay, since we are talking about experts, why don't we have our, the Riaz, our guest speaker today? I would like to introduce. Of course, I did an introduction about Riaz initially, but I'd like to again formally introduce Riaz. He's the senior sales director with extensive knowledge in data analytics, core banking, payments, compliance, and digital transformation projects. And he has been into banking and financial services industry across EMEA region. So Riaz, what is your take? How would you, of course, you might have heard our conversation, mine and Dennis. We certainly differ on some of the aspects, but what is your take in terms of lead qualification?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Vish. No, I appreciate you inviting me for today. I think it's a very critical topic. Sales are won and lost now by the lead qualification process at the start of the process. I noticed, I think Sunil has joined today's session. He used to be the marketing guy handing over leads to me at Oracle. Yeah. And it was always passed on to sales to actually run the qualification process. The last few sessions we've had with Dennis, and I've known Dennis since the 90s, I think that research has been extremely critical. So even though sales does take the ownership, it's driving, the fundamental stock analysis discussions we've had. It's trying to really understand the need and values driven to the customer. I know that you'd probably say this is a lot more scientific approach, but that's effectively what sales is. I don't think there's a lot of magic. It's a lot of hard work. So I don't want to preempt today's discussions, but I can sense that sales will always, I think, set of the lead. It would have to be, like you said, a unique differentiator in terms of value proposition that they offer. And then eventually, trying to work and collaborate with marketing in order to make sure that we're not wasting money on a lead that doesn't take us anywhere. So qualifying very, very rigorously is critical these days.
Thanks, Riaz. I think that's a gem of insight which you shared with as a practitioner, and I believe the participants here would have certainly seen a lot of value in what you shared. But I also want to share that in the future webinars, of course, we would be inviting some of the volunteers who can come and share their learnings which they had from our previous webinars. So we would be continuing to have the practitioners report here. So Riaz, I would request you to stay till we end the session, so that if you have any comment or any further insights to share, then you can add your comments here. But for the participants, I would request them to, if you have any comments or insights which you want to share with us, or even if you have a question, please share that in the chat window. We would like to, we would address your questions. And if there are any comments and insights, then we'll certainly call them out here. So thank you so much, Riaz. I'm going to move to the next slide. And the next slide, okay, that's a question for the participants. And this question is, did you register for the event? Because, okay, it looks like it's from Ritika, because she wants to understand who influenced the participants more. Is it Dennis or Vish? So the first option is you were invited by Dennis or Vish or whoever via your LinkedIn email. B, you saw a posting on LinkedIn and decided to engage. C, you heard about it through word of mouth and found the webinar interesting. You have been, option D is you have been on our earlier webinars, so you are already aware. And option E is other. So I request participants to share their options. That's a KPI for us, for me and Dennis. So, please share your comments or inputs with an option that will help us to understand, the engagement on this event. So I think I'll move to the next slide. While I understand, participants may take some time to share their responses, and there is some lag by the time we would be able to see that on our console. Yeah, but we have started getting responses, and these are interesting inputs which we have been getting. So it's primarily A and B. So Ritika, you can note that down now. Okay, Dennis, over to you.
Okay, let's look. Here's the 80-20 rule. A lot of us are aware of this, the 80-20 rule. I won't read the whole slide, but the point is, how do you eliminate chasing tickers that are probably not going to pay off for you? I mean, that's basically that's the thrust here. So there's the Dow has 30 stocks in it, right? That's why it's called the Dow 30, right? And the S&P 500 has 500 stocks in it, and we have the Wilshire 5000, which has 5,000 stocks in it, and so you get the idea. There's a lot of stocks out there to chase, and I'm only using those U.S. examples. The same is true all over the world. The vast majority of those people are not relative to you. They're not interested in you. And I don't mean because they're in the wrong sector or something. I just mean they don't. So how do you find somebody who's going to likely be interested in you, what you have to offer? I know how to do that. I'm not going to tell you how to do it today because I want you to pay me to tell you how to do that. But you get the idea. There are ways to reduce the size of the funnel at the top exponentially. For instance, if I said to you, look, here's a list of U.S. companies, which this isn't because I'm having trouble with my camera. Here's a list of U.S. companies that are sitting on so much money, they don't know how to spend it. You would go, where's the list? It's right in their financial statements. You just got to learn how to read the financial statement. All right, so that's the idea. How do you reduce the size of the tunnel at the front? So marketing can produce those 1,000 leads constantly. You only really want 10 to work on, though, because the vast majority of them are not a waste of time, but they're going to suck up so much of your energy. You don't have enough time at the end of the day to call the people who may actually be a moneymaker for you. All right, the next slide. And this one I really want you to really, really own. Now, we're not, Vish and I, Ritika, we're not telling any of you people today anything you don't already know. But like any good coach, The coach is going to say, but did you actually work out today? I know you're supposed to work out today. All right. The key to any business success lies in three critical independent components. Operational excellence. If the place is out of control, if it's under chaos, if the supply chain is disrupted, whatever, if the operation isn't running in a well, healthy manner, they're not going to be in business. Creating a world of happy customers. Okay, I know that's self-evident. You go, Dennis, you're telling me stuff I've known since I was in 4th grade. And the third is financial management. Okay, so we all know this, but we don't think about it every day. And if you would allow me, the fundamental business purpose requires any size enterprise to use its money and capital to produce customer satisfaction and reward the capital providers, typically stockholders, et cetera. So let me ask, if everybody on the call agrees, I mean, there's nothing to argue about here, and there may be other things, I'm not saying, but these three things, these three and three up on the top, how do your brands relate to one or more of these 6 things? Now, if you haven't thought about that, here's an opportunity to sit back and take a gulp of air and think about it. Why? You may be dealing with the managing director of corporate actions or the profit center in mortgages or whatever. You want to tie what you have to offer to one of these 6 things. And this is coming up. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Venkat, I think, is on the call today. He's a wonder king in this kind of area. He posted something a week ago. How does your customer, your prospect, describe how what you're doing relates to the CEO's KPIs? Because if your team can't connect the dots, the managing director of the mortgage department may not be able to connect the dots as well, or either. Let's go to the next slide. That got me thinking. Vish, let's do this quick. Let's do this one.
Yeah, so I think this question is, if the lead qualification process is relatively up and running, why is it falling short? Assuming that it is. And the options are, A, we don't have budget to do it justice. We don't have time to execute with enough quality. Option C is we don't have systems that sales and marketing both share. Option D, marketing leads are substandard according to sales. And option E, sales gets marketing leads, but then tells marketing nothing about the progress or lack of same. So please share your options in the chat window, whether it's A, B, C, D, or E, or you want to share any multiple options. We'd be happy to see what option you pick. So while we are waiting for the response, Riaz, do you have any response here in this question?
Yeah, no, I think just reflect on what Dennis just spoke about. The value to the customer. So what I find has worked over at least the last 10 years is drawing up metrics with the customer prior to winning the deal. I mean, it's amazing how the customer can see the value, and then if they don't have the budget, etc., you can actually leverage the fact that they need to, solve that pain point or the challenge. So I think the budget aspects, I know this is on the lead qualification side, but right at the start of the process, if you can define the metric and the value to the customer, it really drives the sale through in terms of qualification process. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think, that's, we have got, I can see one response at the moment from Pankaj. He's opted for D, which is marketing leads are substandard according to sales. And that's where, it adds to the point what Riaz shared. Yeah. But okay, moving back to you, Dennis. And okay. To the next slide.
So with that slide that I saw from Venkat, it caused me to reflect on this. And I've been around the block a few times. And I thought to myself, okay, how does that relate to the C-suite at a public company. So I got the C-suite titles, most of them. I mean, there could be more, but this is most of them. These are the people that are in the C-suite. And these people answer a lot of the questions that we want to have answered. For instance, the CEO often takes the lead in saying, what have we already done? And then he relies on his COO and CFO to augment that. What have we already done? But when it comes to how did we do what we did, the CEO takes a little bit of a back seat and allows for the COO and CFO to extrapolate that for the shareholders. Okay. Now, where are we going? It's entirely on the CEO. He's going to tell you where we're going, or she is going to tell us where we're going. And he only slightly relies on the COO and the CFO about where we're going. Now, when it comes to how we're going to get there, it's a mixed bag between the CEO, the CFO, and the COO. Okay. This is my view of who is carrying the megaphone to the marketplace and who we should be listening to if we're trying to chase a deal. Also notice on these public statements, the CIO, the CMO, the chief risk, they got nothing to say. I'm not saying they're minor players. None of all that happens in a public company doesn't happen unless these 6 people are all talking the same language. I'm just saying when it comes to the public megaphone, these 3 people at the top are the most important. And you could see if there was a test question, if I wanted to know where Wells Fargo was going, not where they've been, but where are they going? You want to get as close to what the CEO is saying as you possibly can. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm just showing it in a pictogram. Now, if we go to the next slide, Vish. So how does this relate to qualifying deals? Now imagine, and I want to leave you with this picture in your head, that hand is the CEO, and he's holding a flashlight, and he's shining a light on the future of this public company. He is shining a light to the world saying, here is where we're going. Okay, but like any light goes from its source, and it doesn't go on a beam unless it's a laser light, but they all spread out. And just like a fireplace, the further you get away from the fireplace, the less warm. Well, the further you get away from the CEO's office, I'm talking about the organizational structure, the less resonance there is for what the CEO said. And why that's important, I'll come to in 1 second. Now, next slide. So what I want us to do is instead turn the flashlight around and look directly into the light bulb and find out what the CEO is saying. Not from some guy third, and I'm going to tell you how to do this, not some person 3 levels down in the organization. Look directly into the light bulb to get what the CEO is saying, because he or she is screaming where the company is going. Okay, and how can you use that? Let's go to the next slide. This is where this information is available to anybody who has a computer. Now, if I'm not going to embarrass Riaz. Well, I couldn't embarrass Riaz. He already knows all these answers. But if I said to Riaz, does he know the CEO messages for all the companies he's calling on? He probably does. But does everybody hear it? Okay. There's also the quarterly financial reports, which is the progress. There's also the 10K report, which tells us, Amazon is having problems. But it's not like Amazon is having problems. Lines of business in Amazon are having problems. So you can't just point at Amazon and say, they're in trouble. No, they're not. They got a cloud business that's knocking it out of the park. You get the idea. So they have different lines of business. So how do you know which line of business is in trouble? And why would you want to know that? Because if you got a risk management solution like they should have had at Silicon Valley Bank, and that one particular department is having trouble in this regard, then you run over there with your risk management solution. But if sales is a problem for one of the other business units and you got a customer experience solution, you ought to be talking to that line of business about their revenues declining. You get the idea. And then the equity analyst reports, they're coming out with red, green, and yellow flags. And if anybody says to me, I don't know how to, we don't get equity analyst reports. Okay. I know you're not getting them institutionally from your company. Everybody on this phone call could open up an account at Goldman Sachs for nothing and get the Goldman Sachs research reports for nothing. For nothing. And I can show you how to open up accounts at Goldman Sachs or anywhere for nothing. If you want to put $10 in the account, fine. And you should have at least one share of every company you're chasing in order to be a shareholder to get everything that the company is communicating automatically. All right, that's kind of where I wanted to get to today, Vish. Back to you.
Thanks, Dennis. So I think, considering the fact that we are short of time now, and I would, thank everyone for their patience while we were facing a technical glitch at our end. We started a little late. But we would be continuing with this session in the session which we are going to have on 25th of May, and we would be talking about the financial nuts and bolts as part of the qualifying leads. Dennis, do you want to share something more about the next session?
So for anybody who knows me, for any length of time, I am a Wall Street. I'm crazy about Wall Street. I just love studying stocks. And so in order to study stocks, you have to become familiar with the financial statements of the companies that you're studying. That's not the only thing you got to do to study a stock. And so my whole business is predicated on using, not theory, I'm talking about using the financial statements of the institutions you're chasing to uncover the goodies. The goodies. And we'll be talking about a lot of those goodies next time. The problem is like filing your income tax. It's so bloody complicated sometimes, and the tax laws are so bloody complicated, your mind just numbs over and you go hire an accountant because you can't deal with it, right? I get that. Well, it's the same true with financial statements. Financial statements, I never added them up, but let's say there's probably, 500 line items on the 3 combined financial statements. 500 line items. But only 10 of them matter. The other 490 are irrelevant practically. So let's get down to the 10 that matter. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Dennis. So I understand Ritika has shared a link to the webinar, to the session, which we are going to have on 25th of May. So I request all the participants to confirm your participation on that webinar, on that LinkedIn live session, so that you don't miss out the series of sessions which we intend to do in moving forward. If you have any questions or any comments or insights, do share with us. Our email ID are provided here. So Dennis' email is dennis@romansnumbers.com, and my email ID is vishwendra@growthsutras.com. As I shared earlier, we have the practitioners report as part of these sessions. So anyone who would like to volunteer for this practitioners report, please share your confirmation with us. You can send it to anyone of us, either me, Dennis, or Ritika, and we'll be happy to include you as a practitioner in our next session. But Riaz, thank you so much for joining this session and making it more insightful. I'm sure you would be continued. We would see your support in the continued sessions as well. With your insights and with your feedback as well in terms of how we can improve these sessions moving forward.
Sure, yeah.
But thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining this session. And thank you, Dennis. Looking forward to the next session now.
I am too. Thank you, Vish. Thank you, Ritika. And thanks everybody for joining today. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.